Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91. We're talking to you guys about Janelle and her post that she put on Instagram a few days ago. I did a little bit of a video where I kind of spoke about it, but I wanted to actually do a separate video getting down and dirty with this particular instance. I think it's quite interesting, several things. This post, first of all, the first picture is her and Moria. I think that speaks volumes. Number two, the actual post itself, she calls herself a woman of the Lord. And it starts off really well. It talks about a little bit about accountability and maybe even some work that the group could have done. And then it quickly descends into anarchy straight after. Are we obsessed with Janelle? Or is it the fact that right now you make good money off the name of Janelle? I want to keep it real because as a blogger, that's just a reality situation, right? Every season comes in and new people come in, you talk about them because they're on that season. Is that because you're obsessed? Or is that because the person's on the show right now and you like the show? I think that's the level of grandeur of delusion that I feel like is a little bit suspect, because it's like, you're on this season, you're playing a villain architect role, yep. And to think that, you are you're so big in your boots that everybody's obsessed with you, for me, is a little bit like, whoa, check yourself, right? Check yourself. The world doesn't revolve around you. It's only the Ready to Love world, the own TV. We are discussing the show, and your castmates also are on that same show with you, and they've experienced you in some particular fashion. And it's quite interesting because every time a villain comes out every season, specifically women, they tend to do the same thing, which is everybody's obsessed with me. Why are you so obsessed with me? Boy, I need to know now. Like every time we have a villain, the key traits of the villains, especially of the ladies, is self-awareness is absolutely lacking, right? When we have the ladies as a villain, the self-awareness is lacking. And actually some of the men too. Remember some of the past people like Pastor David and such, who also too we've interviewed and didn't have the awareness as well. And it's interesting because I think, and we'll go into a post in a second, self-awareness is such a powerful tool to be able to introspectively look at where why you do what you do, and what motivates you, and also being able to analyze your own behaviors introspectively to see how you impact other people. And if you can't see that, then you're going to always move through the world in a particular way. And I think that's what we're seeing with Janelle. And I'm here to talk about behaviors, not about if she's a bad or good person, specifically behaviors that we've seen. And we can talk about the show, but outside of the construct of the show, we were ready to fight Kat. Now, don't get it twisted. Kat obviously has her part to play, because if you tell me to pull up, you're also going to get that. But the fact that you pulled up, the fact that you actually pulled up at 40 plus, like you're saying, you're trying to hold it down for the 40 pluses, but that's not what is a great representation of the 40 pluses. I'm all for grace. I'm all for grace, especially as a believer myself. I'm all for grace. Don't get it twisted, but we're going to call it what we're going to call it, a spade a spade. All right. So if you're new to the channel, do me a massive favor, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Listen, stay hydrated because streets out there are hot. Okay. Also, we're trying to get to 100K by the end of the year. You guys are doing such an amazing job. Thank you guys who've been supporting us all the way through. We do appreciate you guys' support, honestly. And if you haven't done so as well, make sure you guys join our membership out there as well. It means you can get to have every other Tuesday we get a membership live, about an hour or so. We talk about some real issues. I've got some stuff I want to talk about as well in the coming weeks. So make sure you have joined our membership. There's also a Patreon if you want to be part of the Discord, so you can talk about TV shows and some of the other stuff behind the scenes, so you don't have to be on the public. I know a lot of people like to talk in the chats when we have our lives. Why end the conversation there when you can go and have a conversation with others again on Discord as well? All right. And finally, if you haven't grabbed your merchandise, baby, listen, don't play with it. Okay, send them back to the manufacturer, because when they are not working correctly, send them back there. You get what I'm saying to you? Send them back to sender. All right, let's get into this. Let's read her post. First thing first, why did I note out the fact that the first picture is Moria and Janelle? I think it's quite interesting that the first picture wasn't Janelle and Quentin. And I think it speaks to the type of relationship that Jessica has formed with Moria. I think it speaks to the fact that the picture is not of her and Jessica, But the one picture that she chose to put on the front, and I was just even going through her page just as a behavior. Look, I just went through the page. No, we got Quentin there earlier on. We've got a bit of the show, a bit of more of herself. We've got the Quentin, her and Jessica. We've got her and Jessica and Sierra. You know, but the picture that she chose to do carnage on, and I mean absolute carnage on, has someone else on it with her, which is Moria. And I wonder if that is purposeful because of the alignment of ideals in terms of their perspective of how they saw the show, whether they felt like they both were harangued or gone after, or maybe she feels that Moria supports her worldview. There's a reason why he was the front cover. There's a purposeful reason why she chose him to be that front cover. More than likely because he supports her view, and supports her way of thinking about the situation. I don't know if he actually liked the view. I know a couple of people did like it as well, but here we go. Let's read what she put, because I think it's interesting to read and get to understand where she's coming from, as well, right? So let's go. This chittering circuit journey has finally come to an end. That's an interesting first starting of a line. I set out to show women they could show up as their authentic self. I did that. I set out to disrupt the status quo of matchmaking, empower women of all sizes, and they could have who they wanted. I did that. I set out to prove that you could honor your standard of beauty sans all the argumentations. I did that. I set out to hold it down for the 40 plus girlies. I did that. I set out to show people that you can love God, stand on his word, and still be incredibly flawed, yet favored. I did that. I wanted to stay there first of all, right? She says, I set out to show women they could shop as their authentic self. I did that. And honestly, you know what? You're right. You did show up as your authentic self. But your authentic self needs healing if this is how we're showing up. Just what it is, right? Because some of the combative behavior, the eagerness to fight, the eagerness to argue, the eagerness to be passive aggressive, tear down women, even aggressive in aspects. The tone, the words, the malaying of your castmates, and of course they've given it back to you a little bit. Some of them have as well, but in reality, there's been a healthy disrespect towards your castmates that have shown up on, at least in the edits or at least in the show that we've seen, right? Says I set out to disrupt the status quo of matchmaking, empower women of all sizes that they could have who they wanted. I did that, and that part I do agree. In terms of women of all sizes, because previous seasons, women of a certain size have been kicked out, and the reality, like I always say, is this thing is, first of all, she's a very beautiful woman, very, very attractive in the face. This is always going to make a difference when it comes to how people choose women, even those who are of a plus size, right? And I don't think she's even of a plus size, she's more thick. But again, if your face is cute, people are going to see it differently. If your face is fine, people are going to see it differently. So she's absolutely right. I do believe that she set out to disrupt the status quo. She did in some aspects. In some aspects, she did. You know what I mean? Because in the end, she got someone to choose her, which was Quentin overall. Okay. I mean, that's something to be said. But, hey. I set out to prove that you could honor your standard of beauty sans all the argumentations. I did that. Okay, fair enough. I set out to hold it down for the 40 plus girlies. I did that. And I think, yes, as 40 plus, you managed to collect a young man. Fair enough. And to be fair, I don't really blame her on this part, because again, the show does this on purpose where they choose younger men for the show, and I just don't get why. We've had previous men who have been 50 on the show with girls that are 30. It just doesn't make sense. Like Ready to Love do that kind of stuff just because they want to create drama. So it's going to be very hard to kind of prove your point, because they pick people on purpose in a particular way that creates tension. And do you know what I mean? So definitely what you said. I set out to hold it down. I set out to show people that you can love God, stand on his word, and still be incredibly flawed yet favored. And of course, in one part she did, when she spoke to Moria and let him know, hey, faith wise, this don't work for me. I respected it. I said I have to be fair with that. It is finished. Right now, of course, that's a direct quote. I believe that's in Matchmaking with Jesus and what he said on the cross. That's I don't like that. You know what I mean? It's a little bit touchy, but she might not have meant it that way. But again, just because obviously now I've got an idea in my head of the kind of like superiority complex, it's making me feel a little bit of a way, seeing it is finished. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, maybe it wasn't in that thought process. But to say it is finished like Jesus did, it ain't. The work that he did was complete on the cross. And the work that he did was to deliver people from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. So I don't want to ever compare your work and my work and anybody's work to the fact of Jesus. It is finished. But again, I'm only saying that because again, I have an idea of her in my mind because of what I've seen on the show. To the cast of the season, we share a unique experience that lives only amongst us instead of supporting one another. And this is where it kind of goes downhill, right? So instead of supporting one another collectively through this tumultuous process, we allowed our egos to overpower us and rob us of what could have been an impactful moment. We could have done awesome things together as a collective. Instead, you look what happened. I want you to just watch this. She thought she was slick, but we know because we take our time and we read through this, right? As a behavioral issue. Listen to this. To the cast of the season, we share a unique experience that lives only amongst us. Instead of supporting one another collectively through this tumultuous process, look what she's saying. Instead of supporting one another collectively through this tumultuous process, it sounded like it's a we situation, right? We allowed our egos to overpower us and rob us of what we could have been an impactful moment. It's still we, but watch the switch. And so when you're reading it, you have to slow it down because if you keep rushing at 100 miles per hour, you think it's all in the same alignment. It's not. We could have done awesome things together as a collective. Instead, you allowed yourself to be manipulated by the machine. So all the credit of we doing this and we could have done better. We allowed our egos to overpower us. And look what happens in the next few lines. She talks about our egos to overpower us. And yet look whose ego is now about to overpower this whole particular point, right? Instead, it's changed from we to you. And the blame has come on, allowed yourself to be manipulated by the machine, pseudo celebrity and pride. The very things that she's accusing them of, I believe she's also culpable too. And oftentimes, when you believe that everything's about you, it's because nothing ever has been about you. And that's the reason why you want it to be about you so badly. When people are screaming for things to be about them, it's because they've never had it about them. And that's why they're screaming for it to be this way. Okay, right. So an opportunity, I was going to say, Seventy and Pride, an opportunity for excellence was truly missed, and we all played a part in this. Yet she says we all played a part in this, but yet she says you allowed yourselves. So did you allow yourself? Did you allow yourself to be manipulated by the machine and the pseudo celebrity and pride? No, she accuses them, and that's the problem with. And someone would say, and again, I don't use this word because I don't like using it, but that's the narcissistic aspect. I'm not saying she is because I'm not even going to call her that. I don't like calling her that, but someone might say that because they're reading what she said, right? Then says then castmates one by one with their bruised egos. Now we're beginning to label. Took to Facebook groups of equally miserable people. Said that now we're calling people miserable people. Struggle blog sites. We're saying now that people are struggling. We're insulting people now. And YouTube channels that aren't monetized to talk about me. Well, I know she ain't talking about me because my thing is monetized. You understand? And I'll tell you to your face straight up what I feel. If I don't like what your behavior is, I don't like what your behavior is. Again, this is not about being a bad or good person, but this is nasty behavior. See, this is exactly why you get called mean girl, because it's nasty behavior. There's no grace in this. With their bruised egos, took to Facebook groups of equally miserable people. It's not talking about their behavior. It's talking about them as people, right? Struggle blog sites and YouTube channels that aren't monetized to talk about me. And she look how she put capital me, all right? Again, making her the center focus. Now, the thing about Janelle is, now part of this, she may be acting. She maybe this is part of her agent that told her, listen, act, become the villain. That's how people get onto shows later on, right? Very few people have actually been able to transcend from Ready to Love to other things other than Ready to Love, right? We have Mike from like season 2 who's managed to do it. And that's about, I can't think of anybody else who else has transitioned into other things. Now they might have some other smaller projects, but only Mike from season 2 do I remember of who's really taken off, gone into Netflix, done King of Joburg and stuff like this, right? Um, it's very rare. So this whole becoming main character is like, are you sure this is acting or this is just you? And we've seen that on previous seasons. People that lack self-awareness, that don't realize they're a problem and they believe everyone else is a problem, are a bigger problem. You know what I mean? They're a bigger problem. She says, YouTube channels that aren't monetized talk about me and lie when the truth was good enough. You didn't talk about your brands or businesses, not your love connections on the show, and not what you learned, from the process, but just me. Now, I want to be very clear. I've listened to a few people's interviews, and it hasn't just been about just her. And it's actually sickening to think that you would make everybody's interviews or people's stuff, you think it's about you. Now, don't get it twisted. You're a part of their process, and you're a big part of their process because you were mean. Just like there were other previous ladies, Zadia, Camille, Pastor David, uh, who else? Denise at one point. I'm trying to think of other seasons where things happened. Even maybe not as bad, but um, I'm sure more will come to me probably a little bit later. Mike, Kayla, their situations, right? People talk about people because of their behaviors in the show, right? And how they came across. And so if they came across a particular way and you've impacted my life negatively or positively, I'm going to talk about it. It's the arrogance again, once more, to believe that people are not going to talk about their situation, which involves you because you were involved in the process. But you have taken people talking about you for, well, however long in their interviews as it being about obsessed with you. And that is scary. You know what I mean? Right? So yes, you are in fact obsessed, which the word obsessed, let's just have a look at what the word obsessed actually means. Because I we're not obsessed with Janelle at all. I know I'm not. I know other bloggers are not. Because the reality is you're on the show. And once the next season comes, we ain't gonna remember you apart from when I have to use it as a reference. Look at how I talk about previous seasons. I only use their names because I reference them as behavior for now in the show, not because we want to keep talking about you. Look, obsession to obsess is to preoccupy or fill the mind of someone continually, intrusively, into a troubling extent. I'm not troubled by Janelle. I slept well today. I went to bed. I thought to myself, how do I make some great content to talk about behavior? Let's talk about Love is Blind. Let's talk about Ready to Love. Let's talk about some interviews that people have done from these shows. You know, so to preoccupy the mind to a point where it's troubling extent. No, not at all. Not at all. And I don't think other people are in that space. And again, it speaks to the mindset and the character that Janelle brings forth. She says, but it's okay. I forgive you. Again, the arrogance to put yourself in a place where you are forgiving other people for stuff that doesn't need to be forgiven. Again, it's a superiority complex that she has. And I hope that amidst the rubble of this experience, you're able to find peace, real reality, your real names, a functioning website for your pseudo businesses, a dictionary to increase your vocabulary, and a board certified psychologist to help you unpack your childhood traumas and low self-esteem. And I feel like everything she just said there is something that she actually needs herself. No offense, but every offense. It's like people, sometimes you get people that accuse other people of doing stuff, and they are the very thing they're accusing the person of because they can't see where they've gone wrong. Right? Again, we're back to insulting people, saying pseudo businesses, dictionary to increase your vocabulary. Again, these are insults to people. And she knows exactly who she's talking to. And then she blasts off certain, I don't know if these names are real names or these are real producers. They might be. Says to Anthony Sylvester, Simone Slaughter, and Nawara Blue, respectfully, you are the scum of the earth. That's pretty deep. The seeds of dissension you've sown, your lack of integrity, and your all-round poor work ethic are befitting for where you found yourself in life. At my what? Footstool. Again, these particular wordings of superiority are scary to me. And it's why I call that kind of behavior out. This is why I can't say that you didn't deserve the reception that you got from your castmates. Because every season we see something like this. Every season we see something like this. This happens. Every season we have something like this come on. They come out and they say, I'm not like this. I'm not a mean person. I'm not a villain. Da 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 da. And then yet outside of the show, you are showing us villainous behavior. What do you want me to do about it? You want me to ignore the evidence I'm seeing right in front of my face? You want me to ignore the fact that you just read people and in the most disgusting manner, and then say, no, Janelle's just a great Janelle's not behaving badly. No, Janelle, everyone loves Janelle. No, they don't, because you're showing them behavior that is unkind and uncouth. And so in such, people are going to respond to that. Yeah, and I believe, again, it's got nothing to do with her size, nothing to do with her looks. People weren't jealous of her. Bad behavior and a bad attitude is something that people just don't like. Bad behavior and a badass attitude, nobody likes. We don't care how fine you are, how good looking you are. And by the way, she's really good looking. We don't care, because people want to be around people that make them feel good, not make me feel bad. Right? Okay. And the fact that you're putting people at your footstool is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. May God have mercy on you for how you've treated his chosen. Madness in the dunya. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Like I said, we call out behaviors, and I think it's evidently clear that one feels they are more superior than their castmates. They feel like they have a higher status, and we will call it out every time. I don't care if you agree or disagree, but we're gonna call out some behavior. When we talk about superiority complex, it's a behavior that suggests a person believes they're somehow superior to others. People with this complex often have exaggerated opinions of themselves. They may believe their abilities and achievements surpass those of others. However, a superiority complex may be hiding a low self-esteem or a sense of inferiority, right? And I said that from the beginning of the season. When she dropped that, I've been adopted, I said, maybe that's where the superiority complex came from. Having to try and prove to everybody that you're worthy of being chosen, that you are a person who is wanted and desired. And your proof of this is trashing everybody else to show that you've won and you've championed. And that can be formed from, look, being in a place where you're going to be adopted can do a lot to a mind. You know what I mean? Can do a lot to a mind. All right, can be a lot to mind. So again, maybe we'll get a different perspective in the future. Who knows? But I wanted to keep it real. All right, guys. We'll leave you guys. Like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again for another video on Ready to Love, because this was a bit of a mad one indeed.